Hello and welcome to The Number. My name is Wendy Brookhouse,
And I'm Kelsey McCauley.
and today we're going to talk about the number 44,000 with our guest Manja Horner. She is a third generation tradesperson turned leadership strategist and founder of Boost Learning Design. She helps trades businesses fix the leadership training and accountability breakdowns that drive turnover and crush margins. And she's the author of Pass the Torch, a call to rescue the future of trades. Welcome, Manja.
Thanks for having me. This is so much fun. I know you so well by now, and I'm just eager to dive in.
I'm super excited. We'll get to the number 44,000 in a little bit. Kelsey, let's dig into Manja's background. Third generation tradesperson. Tell us about that.
And do you know that label feels kind of uncomfortable because I really spent about 4 years working hands on in the trades. So, looking at the 40 plus years of my father and my grandfathers, I feel a little bit like, ooh, can I say that? But yes, I can reglaze a historic wood window. I can strip all the paint and restore and rejuvenate that old historic wood. So I think that makes me a tradesperson. So yeah, it's a bit of a funny title, but I love it. I'm claiming it because not only do I have experience now working hands-on in the trades, but I actually get to help way more tradespeople across multiple trades improve their business and just fix things all around. So I love the title and I'm embracing it.
Go for it.
Speaking about that, what are the top three mistakes that you see the trade owners making mistakes when it comes to training and their leadership?
Yeah, well, I think the number one mistake is that they don't do it. And I'm not saying that to be cheeky. A lot of companies don't really invest into training that heavily. They kind of expect that people they hire will come either knowing how to do the job from trade school or from apprenticeship or wherever they learned. And then they figure they'll learn it as they go on the job. And that's the same for leadership skills and even supervisors. They get kind of thrown into the role and just expected to figure it out as they go. And it's costing a lot of money and a lot of headache because, well, a couple of reasons. One, you're promoting somebody typically who's really good at the job into a position of management or supervisory, and they don't really realize they're signing up for a completely different job description that has a whole new set of skills. So that's really challenging for people. They get frustrated because they just went from being an expert to now being a newbie, and nobody loves that feeling without the support. The second is they're now just responsible for a whole other different thing. You know, they have to plan and resource and just so many things that they have to now do as a leader. And again, nobody's been really trained on it. So then they're just fumbling their way. And that's where we get the big issues. Like people get mad and they want to quit, or they just go, hey, this isn't for me. I want to go back to the tools. There's a lot of issues in there. So number one issue is they just don't train.
So, what you're
So
saying is that ESP and osmosis are not techniques.
I actually use those terms a lot in my book. The learning by osmosis probably needs to shift because it's very slow way to learn. There's a lot of frustration, and the tinkering generation was okay with that. But the generation of give it to me now really fast and I have 30 seconds of attention span, it doesn't work for that generation.
so people are expecting people to come with batteries included, and they're not coming with batteries included, and they keep getting the same effort or the same mistakes.
Yeah, so it's both in the skilled side and then when people get put into management, supervisor, leadership positions. There's a lot of let's just figure it out. And the only training that I see in the trades that's really done well is safety. And that's because it's been mandated. So people will do it because it's required. And so they're like, okay, great. Well, let's do the safety because we have to. And I'm talking, the big general contractors, the big firms, they're doing all the training. So I'm kind of talking more about the small companies, the ones with maybe under 50 or even under 150. They're the ones who are really struggling in this area because they've never really known to do this. They've never really had the professional experience to go, you know what, training and HR are a core function of our company. That feels very corporate, and a lot of them aren't in that corporate mind space yet because they haven't really had that exposure. The big companies that have like leadership teams and divisions, yeah, they've got this dialed in. So I don't want to, make it sound like some people aren't doing their job.
No, I also, maybe this is a perception and a bias I have, Manja, but I have this perception that the smaller companies may resist it because then it feels like they're becoming corporate, and that might be something they actually started their company to avoid or something.
That might be. And also, I think they don't directly see the return on investment when they do this work. So when I say do this work, I'll break it down. I teach a lot about and advise and consult on building a learning ecosystem within your company. Once you get to a certain size, you need that kind of part-time HR support. And then you also need to start thinking about a learning ecosystem. And that is made up of your software. So what's the thing that's going to hold all the content for training? It's going to hold all your videos and your SOPs and your checklists and your how to do stuff. And then also hold the certifications. So like the licenses and certificates needed. There's got to be a place for that to sit. So we help with what's that content platform basically. And then there's the strategy behind it. So how are we going to onboard, and what's our strategy around the different roles and how we want to train people from brand new to long service? How are we going to build some career paths so people can go from laborer through the different roles until they become a manager, if that's their path? They don't necessarily see the ROI directly. Like, why would we bother putting all that money into this? Or why would we bother putting somebody through supervisor training or leadership training so they can be better communicators or better delegators or better planners? So a lot of what I'm working on educating now is there are a ton of hidden costs buried in your business when you just leave people to figure it out. And that's actually been a really popular webinar topic at the different associations, because we built a calculator and people are going, holy shit, we're losing 8% on every project because people are left to just figure it out. It's rework, it's mistakes, it's injury, it's people mad at their supervisor and dragging their heels. It's just lack of productivity because people don't know they can ask questions. It's running to Home Depot 1,000,000 times because you forgot stuff. Like, there's so much inefficiency baked into every project when there's not that kind of tight training and just support. So that compounds over projects over a year. You've got millions of dollars in lost opportunity.
And really lost value in your company, and lost profit, and
lost opportunity.
Yeah, so much lost. In your book, I think you wrote the book to kind of highlight a crisis that's happening, because everything you're talking about is to address this upcoming crisis that's really right on our doorstep, and it affects everybody, whether you're in the trades or not. In the end, this is going to affect you in one way or another.
Yeah. So I wrote the book because I've been sitting on the sidelines observing for my whole life. I grew up in a family business in the trades, and I could see even 35 years ago that there were concerns about, we can't find good people. And it's interesting because around the same time, we started to see the high school programs peter out. So shop and construction classes were still there, but kind of petering out. And I'm in a rural town. That's where I went to high school. So we had the kids who, chainsawed from the age of 8 years old. So, I wasn't even in an urban setting for high school. And we were already seeing those classes petering out. So yes, I was observing that in the 90s and early aughts, people were only getting pushed into university and college. I saw that happening. I experienced it myself. I spent all my summers working in construction and historic restoration, and nobody ever suggested I take that as a career. Right? And so I detail all of this in my book, just what was happening societally and culturally. And it led to this position where we haven't recruited people into the trades. And I'm talking kids. You have to start when they're in middle school because they're already starting to think about, what am I good at? What do I want to be when I grow up? And we dropped the ball there. So now we're facing a huge shortage, not only from retirees, that's leaving a big gap, but there's not enough people even entering the profession to replace, let alone support the expanded workforce we need with data centers and just crumbling infrastructure everywhere. It's wild, actually.
So wild. So
Yeah.
wild. Because that's why I say it affects everybody. Because if I'm a homeowner and I want to do a renovation, if I want to go buy a certain thing or I want to, get a new house built, this is affecting everything.
Yeah, I mean, there's amazing home builders that have capacity. I'm at the Durham, Ontario, and Canadian Home Builders Association. There's amazing builders out there, but when was the last time you needed a plumber or somebody to just like fix something small? Or, yeah, like you say, getting somebody to call you back on a new porch or a new, I don't know, concrete pad for your garage. Like there are a lot of, there's a lot of scarcity around finding people from the personal perspective. And then, it trickles out into big commercial and industrial and infrastructure projects. So yeah, it's a bit weird. And there's a few factors, but I'll pause on that one.
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, I'm 49. So the stigma when I was in high school was if you're smart, you went to university. And if you weren't as smart, you went and took a trade. Now, all those people who aren't as smart as university, all those people now have 500 employees and live on a beach. So I think they got it fundamentally wrong back then. Has that stigma changed that, hey, there are career paths, you can, go get a trade, be a bricklayer, be whatever, be the best pointer, and command a really great wage? Has that changed?
I think the conversation is ever so slowly starting to shift because there's more emphasis and more focus coming from governments. So when you start to see the government signals putting money into skilled trades training in Ontario, they're doing a really good job. We have a very strong minister who is putting a lot into skilled trades training investment through the Skills Development Fund. So different provinces are really focused on that. Even in the US, the AFA, so American Federation for Apprentices, they're doing a lot. There's been a lot of money that's coming from the federal government in the US encouraging skilled trades. So I think slowly the stigma will start to shift. You've got characters like Mike Rowe from Dirty Jobs, who's, out there promoting, but even still, it's called Dirty Jobs. Like it still puts a mental picture into like, I don't know if I want to be dirty every day. But I think the wave is also moving towards skilled trades because people feel it might be a little bit future proof from AI and automation.
Yeah.
They think, oh, you know what, at least if my kids have something, they can build something, they can fix something, hopefully AI won't take their job. So I think there's a little bit of a fear driving people back to the trades. Okay. Even myself, I mean, I'm a woman in education. I've got multiple degrees. When I look at my kids' RESP fund, I think,
will that even be used?
Yeah, like, am I going to put that to university? Like, I have my middle daughter, she wants to be a veterinarian, and for sure she will be. My sister's an equine vet. She's already, what's the word? Shadowing her aunt over the summers, even at 12 years old. So she's already fully in there, almost apprenticing actually before it's formal. She's already been part of some major cases. So I know for sure she'll go to vet school, and in a professional space like that, you have to, right? You're going through all the years of university to get that degree and get that certification. So for her, for sure. But the other two, I'm like, I don't know. Maybe you'll go into ownership, or you'll learn a trade, or you'll get into something that's a little more hands-on and less academic. We'll see.
I think it's like, and not everyone's suited for either one, but it's like, instead of just trying to get everybody in one lane, find the right lane for the person where they're going to actually enjoy what they do.
I'm hoping somebody comes up with a really strong AI strength finding tool for kids, even in middle school, that they can go through and really objectively assess. You would be a great mechanical engineer, or based on your creativity, you might be an awesome tiler.
Right.
Actually, those mud trades are really hard to recruit people into. That's the trade that's suffering the most. Concrete, tile, any of those mud trades, drywall, they're a lot harder to recruit into. Electricians, they're doing a really good job of recruiting, and it's a little tidier. It's a little less like in the weeds, so to speak.
I don't know. I like the idea of actually getting on those stilts to do running.
Yeah. Well, I think the stilts are sort of, you have to make sure that nobody's watching when
Oh,
you're
is
on
that
them,
not
because I
safe
don't
to
know if
do
they're
anymore?
like part of the safe practice.
Well, there you go. Apologies.
There you go. Don't apologize ever.
I just see it
I
on
was just
TV,
like,
so it
I
looks
was just
good.
like checking myself. Yeah, I was like, oh, is that approved by the labor? I better, I'll double check that.
We'll put it in the show notes. You can do it this way.
Yep.
I think it's also important. So we brought up the number 44,000 at the top end, and that's in your book. And what I found fascinating is for all the owners of these firms that are in the trades arena, um, your book highlights a thing that's happening because in 2021, 44,000 businesses just closed. They didn't try
Yeah.
and sell, they didn't try and keep going, they just closed. And that does so much. Kelsey and I talk about the entrepreneurial ecosystem sometimes, and it's like, especially in smaller towns and more rural areas, they could have been a significant employer. They provide a very valuable service. Where do people, go anymore, right? And so when you talk about this crisis that's happening that you wrote the book about, it directly affects the value of your business if it's unaddressed.
It really does. And I think that's actually something that's really intriguing is the number of businesses that are going to close with this retirement, because this 1 in 4 tradesperson doesn't necessarily just account for the workers, but it also, a lot of those are the owners. And so they'll just work until they die, which my dad is doing. Like he's going to be, well, I don't know, close to 70. He has no plan to stop working.
I had a client who was 70 some years old before he retired. He was a pipe fitter slash welder, and
Yeah.
he just kept going and he loved it. He was awesome, by the way. Like, just such a great
Yeah.
a character.
Yeah, like
But
it's
yeah,
fine. Go ahead and work if you want. But I'm seeing companies all around where they've got very gray hair. They should probably be, resting or at least going part time or spending more time with grandkids.
yeah,
And they don't really have a solid plan in place. They may have a second in command in their company that's like, could probably take things over from the delivery side or the service side, but maybe not run the whole business. So, I think there's some work to be done there. And private equity is kind of coming in and buying up a lot, which I'm just going to sigh and leave it at that, because I'm not like a no and I'm not a hell yes. So I think I've got some opinions there that maybe I don't want to broadcast yet.
yeah.
But it's still concerning, because if you have 3 plumbing companies in a town and then one is gone, you're down to 2. You might have somebody young who restarts, and but yeah, it does leave holes in the ecosystem of entrepreneurs and services.
Yeah.
The physical side of a lot of these jobs, like we were talking about bricklaying and drywalling, and these are not easy jobs. Like, how does that impact, people wanting to come in? And like, I'm a certified exit planning advisor, so I know that only 30% of businesses actually go to market to sell. And there's a plethora of other stats that we can all go through to say how awful that is. So like, that physical demanding side, do you think that's keeping people away as well?
Yeah, and we hear this even a lot more in the manufacturing side of things. I was talking with a big steel plant, and they're trying to do more of like a exposure to interested people. So exposure to what the work environment is actually like, because it is dirty, it is hot, it's loud. You're dealing with like molten steel. Like there are still places where it is a tough, hard work environment. Some people are great with that, but if you're frustrated because like, oh, we don't have as many urban or women or something, it's like, well, just take who wants to be there. Like don't worry too much about it. And I'm a big proponent for women are a very untapped piece of the market. But if it requires like big, brawny physicality, you may not get as many women. And I think that's okay. I don't think that's wrong. It just is what it is. There's lots of opportunities for women in many, many trades and many different roles. So yeah, it is affecting some of the recruitment effort for sure. So I think we just need to give people more of a taste of the different kinds of skills that are available, different kinds of trades, so they can try welding in high school, try some carpentry, try some mudding. You never know, you know?
Yeah,
You never
like
know what
I
you're
think
going to love.
let's go back to your tinkering generation because I grew up, I never had an affinity for this stuff. So I'll just put my hand up right now on this side of things. But my dad, he built stuff, built bookcases. He was doing drywall and renovations and all those types of things. So I got to see it. But I don't think that the new generations might not be seeing it or even observing it.
Yeah, I don't think they're seeing, observing, or really getting their hands on it as much. I really remember as a kid, and again, I grew up in rural, so we had property where you could kind of go get lost and build a fort with a handsaw and a bucket of nails and a hammer. And we did that a lot. Like my dad used to get so mad because all of his hammers and saws went missing. He probably replaced saws, hand saws, and hammers once a month. But I mean, we were never really discouraged from going out and just being all day with a stack of old wood down at like the concrete silo. Like nobody ever really was like, why are you out there? Nobody watched to make sure we weren't going to hurt ourselves. Not once. That's very different than the way we're parenting today. And I think it's a bit of a disadvantage because you can't just put a power saw in a 20-year-old's hands and be like, here you go, when they've never even used a pocket knife. Like it's just a big leap, right? In terms of how a person feels safe using the stuff. And it's intimidating to hold on to a saw that's like got a spinning giant teeth. I grew up watching for like my dad used table saws and power tools. And he'd always talk through like, double check that your hands are out of the way, make sure that this doesn't jump, or if you don't secure this end, your wood is going to kick back. And so
Where's
you
your
just
push
kind of,
stick?
yeah, like you just had an awareness of how to use the tool safely. So then when I'm doing it, I'm like, okay, this wood might kick back. When the saw does this, it might jam, like don't ever like reach in, all the things that just you feel come naturally. But if you've never done it or had experience or exposure, it's like totally new.
I mean, that sounds like, process needs to be kind of put in place. Like in plain language, what does learning design actually mean to the trade screws?
Well, for us, it means focusing on the skills that are most important. So my method is always to start with skills first because the knowledge is good. Like that's a baseline, but you can just dump knowledge on people until they're blue in the face. But until they actually get their hands on something and start developing skills and stacking those skills, it's like, it doesn't really get into the brain. It doesn't create any of that neural pathways. So when we're building skill, whether it's from communication training to leadership, which let's face it, most of leadership is planning and communication. It's clarity, vision setting, that's all communication. But even in the technical or field sale skills, we look at what are the top 50 skills you need in the first year. And then we'll just build ways that they can actually get their new people practicing those skills until they stack. And we break it down. So drywalling, and I have this in my book. Let's just take drywall for an example. You may say, oh, I need them to be able to mud drywall. And you think that's a skill. Well, actually, there's like 30 skills to break that down. So one is going to be, let's just say, mixing the mud to the right consistency. That in itself is a skill. So being able to like notice it, know the tools used to mix it, the right amount of water, the technique to get it so that you're not just like flooding it. How should it spread? Should it feel like peanut butter? Should it feel like Play-Doh? Like, nope, that's too much. You need more water. So like there's a bunch of skills just in mixing your mud. And then it's like handling the tools. You got your hawk in one hand and you've got your trowel in the other. What's the technique for like really nicely, how much product you need on your trowel, like how do you scrape it and when is it done and you need to scrap that batch and get fresh. Like there's all kinds of skills that make up the ability to do a smooth drywall application. So like we sort of force the function of breaking it down into the small skills that are actually the step-by-step stackable ones until somebody is confidently and accurately to the standard applying mud to drywall. So if that helps, it's like really about breaking it down to the beginner's mindset, because most people who've been in the trades a long time don't remember the first days.
Sounds very much like a high efficiency restaurant. It's like you're just doing soups, you're just doing mixes, and you can be on there for a year just learning how to make salad dressing, and then you can graduate to the next thing, and then you're learning just how to season meat.
Yeah,
and
we're trying to do that within a short enough duration that somebody is able to be a productive member of the crew. So you can get, I've talked with experienced carpenters and framers. If you get somebody just framing floors for like 2 months and then just framing walls and just framing, whatever, I'm not going to keep going. Yep. But like, if you can get them to just put a longer amount of time on each of those skills, they get the mastery a lot faster. When you're jumping around like, okay, today you're doing this, oh, tomorrow you're doing that, and then a month later you're going back to that other thing, it's just too jumpy and they don't ever really get the repetition that's needed. And one thing we haven't mentioned on here, because I forget sometimes that how important this is, my very beginning career was actually as a music teacher. I'm a violinist, so I taught music from the age of 16 for about 15 years. Oh, goodness. When I went to university for my second degree, it was actually for music teaching certification. I had a business degree in commerce and whatever, but I went actually again as a mature student to be able to be a better music teacher. And that was kind of what headed me down the corporate training path. So music education is very skill driven. You don't take a student, well, when you're teaching the violin, you got all these parts. You got the bow. So like the right hand, what does it have to do? You've got the left hand, what does it have to do? And then you've got, your ability to read music. That's another part. You're tuning it. So there's all these different parts that make up like a solid sounding Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. That is like, wow, that's really lovely. So as a music teacher, I was always breaking it down. You're just holding the bow this week. So you kind of have to get that repetition so that they can move a lot faster through the skills. And that's what I apply in the skilled trades as well. It's no different. Same principles.
I took fiddle lessons over 30 years ago, and that was the first song I learned was Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. So that's why I was kind of laughing.
Everybody does. Yeah, and that's why I quit. And I'm just why I quit teaching eventually, because I'm like, I can't handle another Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. Yeah. I'm out.
I've hit capacity.
Yeah. But actually, interestingly, the Suzuki method, which is a really well-respected music education method, they start the kids really young, like 3 years old. Every time you learn a new skill, you do it to the tune of Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, even as a professional. So if you're learning something really like technical and complicated, spiccato or something, you go back to Twinkle Twinkle Little Star and you do it on that tune. So
what does that do? Is it just anchor it differently? Is there what is the reasoning in behind that?
Well, I think it's just because that tune is, you don't have to then focus on the tune or the notes. You're just focused on that skill. So it kind of like makes a bunch of the factors muscle memory, and you're just isolating the one new thing. So it'd be like, you guys are in finance. So it might be like, just only calculate with round numbers, because then you don't have to think about it. You're just focused on, whatever new thing you need to do. I don't know. That was a poor analogy.
That could be we distill spending plans down to one number, and everything else we try and automate so that they only have one point of focus to make things simple and reduce decision fatigue and all that.
There you go. Yeah. So that's exactly the premise. It's like, if you don't have to think about practicing that specific bow technique on a new set of notes, You're just doing twinkle, twinkle, little star. You know that already. You've done that 8 million times. So don't worry about the notes. Just worry about
Your technique.
how this hand feels when it's, working the bow. So it's the same. It can be applied to the trades as well in many situations. So the cool thing about us is that we're only building training for skilled trades. And why that matters is because many corporate trainers, they know how to train for people that sit at desks, and they do that really well. I did that for 10 years working for the banks and financial services. It's so different to create training for people that sit at desks or stand in the branch and serve customers. It's another totally different environment when you got like safety issues and shouting and dirt and weather conditions, and like it's a very different environment. Plus, blue collar people just are kind of their own adorable group of people. Adorable maybe is like a funny word, but different expectations for training. There's a lot of like, this is effing bullshit. Why should I do this? This is a waste of time. So we have to cater to the learner. You always have to start with the learner. And, that's what we do really well is we cater all of our training to a very specific learner and learning environment.
I love that. Manja,
Yeah.
what is something we didn't ask you today that we should have?
Oh, what a good question. I'm going to pause for a second because I have to just really think. Oh, the one thing you didn't ask me today that I think is really important to note is what happens when all these retirees walk away and just leave their tool belt behind, or you just never hear from them again. What happens to all that really rich knowledge? Was that a waste? Where did it go? How did that transfer to other people? And I spent an entire chapter in my book just talking about knowledge capture engine. Like, what is that engine, that system where you can download, extract, interview, video, capture, document experience from people that are amazing before they go. And then the next chapter is how do you take that and transfer it to the next generation through mentorship, through video, through training, because I think that's the part we're not really, that hasn't sunk in yet. Yes, we have the bodies leaving. We haven't talked about the brain drain that's happening.
And I mean, they've seen everything. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so there's so much that has driven into their subconscious and they just do it, that they're not even aware of it.
They're not even aware of it. And these are the people who know the 45 uses for WD-40, then we only know 2, or like, they're the ones who've just like, oh, okay. So my brother, he fixed my light fixture above my island this weekend. Everyone was over for dinner and he's like, what's going on there? I was like, honestly, dude, I have tried to fix this 3 times and I had like Teflon coating around it. I was just trying to make the threaded rod, it had separated. I was trying to make the threaded part a little bit more full because it seemed like it was just slightly too small. So it kept slipping out. And he's like, I don't know. So he's like fiddling with it. He takes the whole thing apart, undoes it. And then he like has it back installed. And I was like, dude, what'd you do? Like, I've tried this 3 times. And he's a carpenter. He's been working under my dad for at least 12 years. And he's like, oh yeah, I just realized if I flipped the rod around, I just thought maybe the other side would have been like slightly bigger in the way they'd machined it. Yep. He was right. It just needed to be flipped around. I'm like, for Pete's sake. I've been sitting with that stupid thing sagging for probably 2 years, I'm embarrassed to say.
Yeah. I think that story encapsulates it all. Who should buy as we wrap up, we could talk to you forever, I think, about this. Who should buy your book?
Well, if you're a leader in the trades in any capacity, or if you're a person who's in the trades, you're working in it, mechanics are buying it, safety people, all kinds of people are buying it. But even if you're just interested, like you're curious about what's going on, the first 8 chapters will be interesting to you. The next 4 are very tactical. So I kind of have a number of chapters just like, how did we find ourselves in this mess? Where did we get to? How did we get here? What are all the myths around Gen Z workers are lazy? They don't want to do it. Like, I break down all those myths. And then the last 3 chapters, if they get too in depth on what to do about it, you can ignore those. But I think it's actually quite an interesting book for a broad audience. And Yeah, I'm just really pleased to be here and chatting with you today. Thanks so much for everyone for listening.
Well, thank you. And if people do want to get a hold of you, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Well, I'm definitely ramping up my social media presence. So Manja_Horner. I'm sure you'll have all that information in the show notes. The beauty about having my weird name is that's my Instagram handle. That's my website domain. And go to passthetorchbook.com if you want to get your hands on a copy. And LinkedIn or Instagram are a great place to connect. I'm trying to do daily content there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming out and coming on the number. And I feel like you're in a niche here and you're addressing a need in a very practical, approachable way. So if you're in the trades, go get this book.
Thank you so much.